Welcome to BIO-CHEM Physics Academy. Today we'll be taking quotient rule. Quotient rule is applied when a terms are dividing themselves. That is, when a terms are dividing each other. For instance, let's say 4 divided by 3 then is what? 4 divided by 2 rather is what? Is 2. So the quotient of 4 and 4 divided by 2 is what? The quotient of 4 and 2 is 2. Or let me say 6 and 3. So the quotient of what? Of 6 and 3 is what? Is 2. So quotient rule is applied when two functions or terms are dividing each other. Given that our f of s is equal to u of what? Of s all over v of what? Of s, then you can say our f prime of x. We can say f prime of x is equal, which can be also equal to dy all over dx is equal to v du all over dx minus u dv all over dx all over v square. Let's take an example to see how it works. Given that y is equal to x squared all over x plus 1. If I have to differentiate y with respect to x here, then note that this will be v, this will be u, and this will what? Will be u. Then let's say our let u, I'm really sorry, this should be u. Okay, let u be what? Be x squared. And then if I have to differentiate u with respect to x, this becomes du all over dx, which is equal to, if I have to differentiate this, u with respect to s becomes du all over dx, and this becomes, this times s becomes what? 2s. 2 minus 1 is what? Is 1. So this is it. So this is du all over dx. Then let's say let v be what? Be this denominator, which is what? X plus 1. Then our what? If I have to differentiate v with respect to s, this becomes dv all over dx, which is equal to, if I have to differentiate s, this becomes 1 times x. 1 times s is what? Is x, and 1 minus 1 is 0, and s raised to what? 0 is what? Is 1. So our change, our dv over dx is what? Is 1. Then recall that our change in y, the y over the x is equal to v du all over dx minus u dv all over dx all over v square. Then our dy all over dx is equal to, what's our v? Then our v here is what? Is x plus 1. So we have s plus 1 bracket our du all over dx. Du over dx is what? Is 2x here minus, we have our u here is what? We have s squared, and our dv all over dx here is what? Is 1 all over, we have here, we have our v square, What's our b square? Our b is what? Is x plus 1 square. Then you can say our change in y, the y over the x is equal to, here, this one x times this, x times 2x becomes what? 2x square. 1 times 2x plus what? Plus 2x minus, here we have x square times 1 becomes what? X square all over, we have x plus 1 raised to power what? 2. Then we can now say, here we can now say our change in y, our change in x will be equal to, here 2x, here we have, if we are to collect the like times of the numerator, this becomes 2x squared plus 2x all over, here becomes what? X plus 1 raised to 2. Then our change in y, the y over the x is equal to, here 2x squared minus x squared. 2x squared minus x squared is what? We have x squared plus 2x all over x plus 1 raised to 2. This is the